Welcome to the Moon Manifesting Podcast with Kyra Howearth. Hi, I'm Kyra, business astrologer, moon manifesting mama, author, teacher, and mentor. I teach you how to harness the energy of the moon, stars, and cosmos so you can manifest your dreams and discover a deeper purpose to your life. Welcome to the Moon Manifesting Podcast. Today we have a very special guest with us. We have Tammy Guest, who is an adventurer, freedom seeker, business mentor, author, speaker, and retreat host who gives you permission to dream bigger. Tammy is passionate about helping entrepreneurs create a business that they love and to help prevent burnout and adrenal fatigue. Really excited to have Tammy here on the podcast, as she has been a mentor of mine from quite some time, and she has been really integral to the development of my career. So yeah, without further ado, welcome Tammy to the Moon Manifesting Podcast.
I'm so excited to be on the podcast.
Yay. And I just love that we're also both Geminis. So I feel like whenever I get a Gemini on the podcast, like we just chat. So really excited to see where the conversation goes today. So Tammy, what I really want to bring you onto the podcast about is, like, I know you're a business coach, but something that you really introduced me to was to bring more woo into business. When I first came across you, I was practicing as a herbalist and I wasn't really spiritual, to be honest. And it was only through your work and going through one of your masterminds and being on retreat with you that I began to see that the woo, the spiritual part, was something that was missing from my life, from what I was doing with clients. So what I'd love to start the conversation off with is, tell us a bit more about bringing woo into business. What is the woo? How to bring it in? Tell us all about that.
So I was practicing, my background is in actually cancer research and pathology. So I have this real science kind of academia kind of way of getting into naturopathy. And I thought that that was the only way I could be. And so I was sitting in front of people with a microscope and like a special suit on and, like, a lab coat basically, and trying to, help them out, but just from a science perspective. And I felt like I was trying to discuss things with them with one hand out, but I had two hands to work with. Because before I did cancer research, I actually traveled through Europe with my dad's old tarot cards. I've actually got them here, and they're
Oh, wow.
they're from 1972. The original
Ah,
Rider White tarot deck, and they are amazing, and I love them. And I stole them from my dad when I went and did my years around my working holiday around Europe, and to pay my way on the Eurail, on the on the train trips, I would do tarot readings for people. And it essentially was my first business, but I've never thought about it like that. It was just that I could make a little bit of cash on my trip around. And then I went and worked in the hospitals over in the UK and in areas like that, doing the cancer research stuff. But I was actually really intuitive. Really, it was an amazing thing to be able to talk to people with a tool in front of you that was essentially mindset created. It's all of these amazing psychological kind of reflections that I started to notice, and then I was able to have these amazing conversations with people. Anyway, come to being a naturopath, I was there sciencing out with one hand, and then I just started to notice, if I could bring in my intuitive side, if I could have those conversations that were really woo orientated, that started with, handing over some guidance cards or handing over some, even the ones that just have one word on them. It created a different conversation with the people in front of me that allowed for it not to be expert to expert per se, but it started to be human to human. And
yeah.
we started to have a really different conversation. And from that conversation, I really believe where attention goes, energy flows. And so when you have your attention on something really intuitive, your energy flows in there. And then all of a sudden you're getting intuitive hits about what else is going on for them, what's the right question to ask. Other, a much deeper conversation comes out of it. So my woo came from a place of needing to embrace all of me in the conversation rather than just pretending I was one-sided. And once I started to do that in conversation, I started to go, oh, well, how bad could it be just to have all my crystals around my clinic? And how bad could it be to have like guidance cards in every room? And really, if I've got those in every room, then why not make sure that people, when they ask about, oh, that's an interesting incense, just describe to them that we had a smoke session on the Sunday to make sure that we cleared all the energy fresh for the week every week. Like, there was just things that started to shift that I started to accept. And as soon as that started happening, wow, energy really flows where your attention goes. And I started to embrace it on a personal level in my business, business planning, in whether it's like you talk about, whether it's using astrology to plan your business or your launches, whether it's using my tarot cards. I use them all the time, and I teach people on retreat how to use them for the different phases, the seasons, or the different entrepreneurial cycle, that you can then plan for what comes up in a flow aspect, rather than like trying to keep up with the Joneses or keep up with the what's happening online and things like that. You can actually do it from your own flow. So yeah, lots of different ways I embrace woo in my business.
I love that. And the funny thing is, I feel like when I was working with you a few years ago, I don't think we explicitly had this conversation about how you brought your cards into your clinic space and crystals and all that. But I did the same thing. Like, after working with you and after going on this magical retreat to Bali with you, I came back home and I made these changes in my clinic space. I brought my crystals in, I brought my tarot cards in, started doing readings for the clients who were open to it, like as part of their consultation, started bringing all that woo in, and things started to shift for me. It's really amazing what can happen when you just start doing those little things, bring those little bits of woo in. It really shifts things. So that's so cool to learn more about that. What sort of things could people be doing? Like, if it's maybe they don't know how to read cards, like what are some other ways that people can bring more of that woo into their business?
So woo doesn't have to depend on tools. It's always been there. It's ever present in nature. And of all the things that you could do, you're the queen of it. You can just look up at the sky every night and check out what phase the moon's in, right?
Yep.
So having worked in hospitals, one of the really obvious things for us is that as soon as there's a full moon, everyone knows about it. There is more people on emergency. There is more people who are going to get cross-matched for blood transfusions, because people literally go lunatic style. There is something about us being predominantly water-based organisms, and the whole planet's water goes all the way up in a big high tide during our full moon, that we do have scientifically a reason to feel a little loony. And if you can even understand that just from starting to acknowledge how you feel when the full moon is out, to how different it is to when the new moon is out, to how different things are, and whether or not your period cycles with the moon, or whether it's a little bit out, or if it changes depending on how you feel, things like that. So I love that your gateway into things is the moon, because I feel like that's a really easy woo aspect for everybody to start to notice, because it's always there. It doesn't cost anything. You just pay attention to it, and you get some amazing insights. Probably the second one is astrology. Like, if you don't know your sun sign to begin with, go and check that out. if you don't know, like, and then the next kind of step, and I'm still always ever learning from an astrology perspective, then what's your rising and how's that affecting you? And then what's your moon sun and how's that affecting you? And then, only recently I found like this north node, south node kind of stuff, and my life journey and path. So there's different ways, and it's just wherever your little gateway is. I feel like when you haven't embraced woo necessarily in your business or your life yet, you just have to find the thing that gives you a bit like a flame, it gives you a little, "Ooh, that's a little bit interesting," and just
Yeah.
lean into that, whatever that happens to be. It might be crystals. You might be walking past a crystal shop and all of a sudden there's one particular crystal that stands out for you, and finding out more about that, finding out what it means for you, how it could possibly help you on an energetic level, that kind of stuff. The other thing about leaning into woo is that there is the elements, again, free way of thinking about things, rather than going and buying a tool necessarily.
Yeah.
The elements are there all the time. I'm consistently surrounded by flames and wondering about, like, how do we meditate on a candle, or how do we ruminate and think about where smoke goes when we have either a smoking wand or incense, and does it feel better in my house if I use those, or am I asthmatic or allergic? And then you find another way of getting into it. So there's earth, fire, air, and water. What does it feel like when my feet are on the earth? Does it change the way I'm feeling today? And, something that I've been doing recently is jumping in the water. I've been doing
Yes.
cold plunges for all of July. And, what does that feel like when we play with water, and, how does it change things? I also saw the movie Elementals recently,
Oh, I don't
brand
think
new.
I've seen that one.
Oh my goodness, it's a kids movie, your family will love it. Pixar, it's a Disney Pixar, cartoon movie, and it's all about how inside of us we all have the elements, and we might be leaning towards being a bit more fiery today, or a bit more emotional and watery today. And I think there's something about tapping into that collective consciousness about what is woo per se, but it is actually always been with us. It's just we've never actually put words to it, and how we can
Yeah.
utilize that for helpful ways in our lives in the everyday. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So I guess what you're saying there is like a way to bring woo in is to also feel into it rather than kind of forcing yourself to think, okay, if I put this crystal in here or do a bit of smoke cleansing, it's going to shift the energy. Like rather than like forcing it, like really tuning into the feelings of what kind of lights you up with those sort of intuitive things, or those things that aren't so black and white or structured or scientifically backed, I guess. Like, yeah, feeling your way into that. And I feel that's really important because like you don't have to use crystals if it doesn't resonate with you. You can choose your own woo. So that's so important.
And I want to add, it feels like it's not scientifically backed just because who's going to spend money on a scientific publication that it does blah 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 blah. So knowing science, that's how it works. But you can run your own experiments, and that's like
Yeah.
my favorite thing to do. The first time I picked up a pendulum, oh my goodness, do you remember when you first picked up a pendulum?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
anyone who has, and you've sat it right there, and you've held the pendulum over, and you ask it the questions about what is my name Fred, and it goes a particular way, and then you're like, is my name Tammy? Am I known as Tammy? Like all of a sudden it goes the other way, and it's just that scientific exploration of an experiment, like running your own experiments, is so much fun. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh, so whether it's a pendulum, whether it's crystals, whether it's the sensations that you feel when you put your feet on the ground, or um, write your wishes into a fire, like there you can run your own experiments all the time. It's so fun being an adult that you can run your own woo experiments. It's so cool.
Yes, yes. And I love framing it like that, like, conducting your own experiments. Like, even if you're a bit skeptical, as I definitely was when I first started getting into all the woo and the spiritual stuff. Like conducting your own experiments, like, how does this feel? Is this, giving me an accurate sort of answer or a response? Like, why not run your own experiment and record and make your own data? Like, that's a really cool idea. I love that.
Yeah, love it too.
So what I'd also like to talk about, and I feel this is kind of bringing the woo, but into a more practical sense, is that I know you work a lot with the seasons and using the seasons to create a bit more flow within the business. And I feel like this is a kind of way of looking at kind of like the astrology, but not necessarily looking at the stars, but still looking at those collective energies that we all feel throughout certain times of the year. So could you talk to us a bit more about that? How can we use the seasons to create more flow?
Yeah, so I love the seasons. I love the phases of the moon in a really similar way. There's an archetypal energy that we have when we've gotten to the garden. So I was during COVID, I went and volunteered at an octogenarian's garden every Thursday, and she was local, so we were able to go there. And a friend of mine and I managed to meet in this garden, and it's just this rambling, just gorgeous thing that's been there forever, and this big, beautiful house with like a full round veranda around the outside. And she's beautifully run garden experiments. So there's like the rose garden down the bottom that's kind of a bit rambly, and then there's like a little rundown shack and shed with all the citrus trees around it. And then we got a little plot that we could go and play in that had herbs, and we were growing vegetables for her. And what I really learnt from it was being in the presence of the seasons. You can't force things to just grow. Like, it has to be ready to grow. It has to have the conditions for growth. It has to, and then you just can't make it fruit. Like, if I was going and making the pumpkins, we had to scatter the seeds around. And I couldn't just expect to come back the next week and have them, even seedlings, they took time. And I think there's something that we're missing in this whole online world of, we've got to get all our businesses right, and we've got to look Insta famous in our family life as well. Stuff takes time. It takes challenging conversations. It takes, trying to fertilize things and keep them going. And then eventually, when you least expect it, it fruits. I had these massive pumpkins, ripe and ready for the winter season. And when I could experience that, and then I could use that food, and then I could repurpose those seeds and then go round the cycle again, I started to notice how it applied to the entrepreneurial cycle. And the entrepreneurial cycle is just the normal cycle that a business goes through. And a business goes through, I come up with an idea, like you came up with the idea of your tarot workshop that you've got. And everyone needs to, my personal opinion is everyone needs to know about tarot, or about at least intuitively hitting on cards, because there's so many amazing cards out there that can be really amazing tools. And so you come up with the idea, right? And it's a lot like planting the seed. You plant the seed in, and you're not sure whether or not it will grow, and you're not sure whether or not people are interested in it. You're not sure whether or not it will, take off, but it's a good idea. So you plant it, right? So the idea is the kind of notion of spring. You pop it in and you wait for the seedling to pop. Once it's popped and you've gone, oh, that actually I could do that. Actually, that'd be a really great thing to be helpful for people. And I could probably do it in maybe an hour and make it really easy for people. And so there's a creation mode, a spring mode, and an idea mode. Then we move into summer. And then summer is like, how can we shine the light on this beautiful seedling so other people know about it? And similarly, you share it on social media, or you put it on your website and make sure people know about this amazing piece of information. And then that summer kind of thing is often the messaging and marketing aspect of in business, that you're shining a light on the thing that's really important right now. And then that thing grows, we start to get it to people start to have, experience what it's like. And then we go over to autumn, and autumn is that offering. And my ginkgo tree does offering really well. it grows and grows and has all of its leaves out and it's ready to go. And you're like, yes, ginkgo trees look amazing like that. But then they let them go in autumn. They just drop all these golden leaves on the ground. And similarly in business, we just let our beautiful experience out into the world. So similarly, we let go of the idea of our workshop. We might run it once and then we might go, oh, everyone's got such a great experience from it, which is, I'm certain, what's happened with the tarot workshop, that we want to make sure that everybody gets access to it. So it goes up on your platform so everyone can get access to it instead of just having to show up when they need to show up. They can do it whenever they want. And so autumn is about popping it on there on a platform, a process, or a system. That's what autumn does. And then over in winter is that kind of review and renew cycle where we go a little bit inwards and we go, how did we go? Did people enjoy it? Did people get something from it? Oh, well, they did. How would I do it differently next time? Oh, I'd probably just tell more people about it.
Yeah.
Or, how do I renew myself so that if I do want to create something new, like your amazing moon manifesting cards, that you're renewed and you're looking after yourself and yourselves to go into the next phase. And so entrepreneur cycle goes like that. You go creation mode, then you go spotlight mode, then you go platforms and processes, and then you go review and renew. So do the seasons. They go creation mode and spring mode, then they go summer mode, then they go autumn mode, and then they go winter mode. Now, the trick, tell you the trick, is you get your tarot cards or your moon manifesting deck,
Yeah.
and you shuffle your cards and you put on a grid in front of you a four card grid, and you start essentially, if you had a clock face, you're going from midnight to 3 o'clock. That is your spring. That is your idea for your business. And you shuffle your cards, you pop one in there, and that's the energy around your business for your idea. It's a really great time to be able to do it. If you've got a new idea and you're like, yes, I think this will be amazing, and you go and you put your card on there, it'll tell you what you might not have noticed about it, or whether it's like yep, green is go, get that thing done. Then from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock is the second card, which is your summer card. And it's how do you message and market that kind of stuff? How do we make sure that the right people get this information? And that, whatever card you pull, it'll give you an insight about the energy around your messaging and marketing and what you might have missed or what you might need to pay attention to. And then your 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock is your third card, and it is your autumn card. And it might tell you a bit more about your processes, your platforms, and the systems, the things that you haven't also probably paid attention to. And us in the woo and natural health field, we often have a little bit of in this kind of techie zone.
Yeah, definitely.
And so it'll give you that insight as to who you need to be in that situation, what you might need to focus on. And then your review and renew cycle. This is the bit that most business owners miss. It's that 9 till 12 type of time, which is the winter zone. We're not really great at being in winter because we've got, especially us Geminis, we've got so many ideas. We don't really want to stay still to think about how well we did or how we just want to go on to the next idea. But this zone tells you about what you really need to look after yourself and look after the project or the offering that you had, and make sure that it's really doing its best for who it was here to help in the first place.
Yeah. Oh, that is gold. That is so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing the tarot spread and how to use that with the seasons. I think that is so valuable. So for everyone who's listening, maybe even just rewind and make sure you write that down and have a try of it, because that can really help you tune into the energy of that idea that you have and help you plan accordingly. I love that. And as you're talking about the seasons and what that means, with the entrepreneurial cycle, I was also making a parallel in my head about how the moon cycle has a very similar energy to those 4 seasons.
It does.
The new moon, spring, new ideas, that. I was yeah, there's something there.
Yes, it really does.
yeah, like you can keep going like, yeah, through the seasons, like the waxing moon with the summer and like leading up to the heightened energy of the full moon and yeah, so forth. Like, beautiful. Love that. Love that so much. And yeah, just even like using the cards for that business guidance. Like I feel like that is a really cool way to bring a bit of woo into your business, even if you're not necessarily like using woo with your clients, like face to face, you can still use that woo in the back end of things to, you know, do the planning and everything. So that's amazing. Love it. Thank you.
So good, so good.
So, my next question, so Tammy, I don't know if I mentioned at the start, but she's an author and she has written a book called Unrestricted. So I want to chat a bit about what it means to be unrestricted as an entrepreneur, being unrestricted in your business, because I feel like this is really where we can tap into that flow and that woo, where we don't feel like we're stuck in a box in like a structure that may not serve us. So can you tell us a bit more about that unrestrictedness?
Yeah. So when I talk about being unrestricted, and my book is about doing things differently in business and life, it gives us a place to start from to identify that first, many of the things that we believe to be true have created these restrictions, but they're mostly made up in our minds, or that we've bought into ideas from society or other people or our family, bless them, or other places and spaces that have created these restrictions on the way in which we think we can be, the way in which we think we can do business, the way in which we think we can live our lives, the way in which we think we can show up, the way in which, yeah, all sorts of things. And the thing about that is that once we start to identify the areas with which there are restrictions, we can become unrestricted in those places. And it's not to say that, for instance, money, oh, we've had restrictions about money and not all of us can be a millionaire and blah, blah, blah. Sure, there's that. And, oh, we can always make more money and there's lots and lots of things. But the truth is, once you recognize that there might be a restriction in your life around the idea of money, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can be unrestricted and we're all going to be billionaires. It just means our mindset can be unrestricted by the old ways in which we bought into it, the old restrictions that we're thinking, and we can create a special new way that is in alignment with us. What is being unrestricted with your mind about you look like for you? It might mean, for me, when I first explored this, it might mean, actually, I don't just want to do one holiday a year. I want to do a holiday for me. Well, I want to do a holiday for my family was the first step. And then I want to do a holiday that involves my husband and I, so we could go away. And then I want to do one, if I'm doing one for him, I want to do one for me. And then I want to do one for my business. So for me, being unrestricted, because I was brought up in a family where we went on holidays camping, and we went in our car and mostly stayed in tents and camping. And that was a great way to grow up. But I didn't want that for my family. There was a restriction on my mind about what my life could be capable of, based on this weird notion that it had to be the same as when I grew up. And so if I actually removed that, became unrestricted in that area, then I get to choose what I'm going to do. It's not that I'm going to choose and go completely unrestricted, that I'm going to take over the world and every day will be a holiday. It's, what does it look like for me in particular? And so I got to choose those 4 trips a year, and we continue to do that. It took me a couple of years to get there, but it was a wonderful opportunity to create a new unrestricted perspective for me in the world of travel and money and what my life can look like. So living an unrestricted life, and similar for all of us that are embracing the woo in our business, in our lives, we don't have to be restricted by the one thing that we were brought up as. I went to an all-girls Catholic school when I was and that was the start of my high school experience. Yet I really gel with tarot cards. straight after high school, and I can embrace both. It doesn't mean that I have to be one or the other. And that's the thing about restrictions. They're sneaky. They'll often show up as an either or situation, but I can have both. I can be both. Or
Yeah.
I can choose. Like, in just by identifying those restrictions, we can start to identify what we actually choose. Mm.
Yeah, that is so powerful. And I feel like definitely like we get stuck in beliefs like, we have to do things the way that we've always done them. So being able to shift that mindset so that we can choose a different path, like choose your own adventure. I think that is amazing. Like we sometimes just don't even realize how stuck we are until we come up with these like come across people like you who challenge us to think a different way. So that is so powerful. Before we end off the conversation today, I want to talk a bit about your big three in astrology, because I feel this is going to explain so much about why you are passionate about what it is that you're doing. So Tammy, you're a Gemini sun and a Sagittarius rising and an Aquarius moon. And the thing that I particularly want to point out here is that as a Sagittarius rising, you are really here to help others, to guide others to find freedom, to be more adventurous. And that is exactly what you do, like in so many different levels, like even just like how you're talking about like traveling around when you're younger, traveling around Europe, like that is such a Sagittarius rising thing to explore the world and then come back and share your experiences with others. So when I found out that you're a Sagittarius rising, it was like light bulb moment. Of course you are.
Yes, and I love embracing that part of who I am. And I think there's power in creating the more you know about yourself, especially from astrology or any other personality profiling tool, to be honest, if you're more in the cerebral kind of aspect to begin with. But the more you know about yourself and the more you embrace that, especially if you're a solo entrepreneur, if you are creating a business and life that you love that's around what you are really great at, knowing your astrology and how it can apply, it creates more flow. It's so challenging. Like, when I was in pathology and I was working in a laboratory underneath somebody else's, like, as my boss under my boss under my boss, like there was three bosses around me, and I was told what to do day in day out, inside with no light, and it was only science based, black or white. Like, think about my poor little Gemini brain that could see every aspect of everything, and my poor Sagittarius self that couldn't even see the outside world, and my poor Aquarian that just really wanted to connect with all of the connectedness of the world. And
Yeah.
and I think there's something that is really cool about being able to create your own business. Once you identify what you're actually really good at, it creates just a beautiful gateway into flow when you really embrace it. And that's what I've done with my business. So yeah, I can see that with the
Absolutely.
Sag bit. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And like with your Aquarius moon, you love to do things differently. Like you love to do things that are maybe a bit unconventional or outside the box. And like I see how you've continuously done this. Like you've like pivoted with your business when we had like the COVID lockdowns and you had NatX, your conference, and you pivoted. You made it a hybrid virtual conference as well. Like you don't let things stop you. You find new ways to do things, and that's what you inspire other people to do. You inspire people to do things differently. And yeah, as a Gemini sun, like you're just a natural communicator as well. Like you love to talk and to share and to write. Obviously, being a writer and speaker as well, like there's a lot of that happens. So yeah, you are just so inspiring, Tammy. Thank you so much for being on the Moon Manifesting podcast today. Before I let you go, would you like to share how people can connect with you, how people can work with you, your current offerings? Because I know that you've got quite a few exciting things that are currently happening in your world.
Yeah, so everything you can find at tammyguest.com. And I spend a lot of time on Instagram because I do like a visual kind of means, my Gemini Sag just really gets it going when it comes to visual aspects of places and spaces, and I often share behind the scenes of what I'm doing over there. And I love anything to do with being on a retreat, so you can see all my bits and pieces over there. Yeah.
Perfect. I will pop Tammy's website in the show notes below so that everyone can click through, as well as her Instagram. So you can go follow Tammy on Instagram. Tammy is so inspiring on so many different levels. I follow Tammy on Instagram pretty closely, and she's always doing amazing things. So make sure that if you love this conversation and you loved hearing Tammy talk, that you go follow her and check out all of her amazing things on her website. So thanks again, Tammy, for being a guest here. It was so great to chat with you and to totally be Geminis and just chat about all the cool things. So thank you so much. And for all our listeners, stay magical, stay manifesting, and stay tuned. I'll be back soon with a new episode.
Thank you for listening to the Moon Manifesting podcast. If you're wanting more moon magic, check out my book, Moon Manifesting. Download your free Moon Manifesting calendar or connect with me on social media. You can do all of that at kyrahowearth.com.au. Stay magical, stay manifesting, and stay tuned. I'll speak with you in the next episode.